Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of awakentheworld.ca. My name is Garhen, and the little ball with the bell you hear is being played with by my cat, or our cat, Karma. There's a reason why we named her Karma. She's actually a pretty good kitten, that's for sure. Sooner or later, she'll make an appearance, and I'll get her into the frame here. I left off at the end of the first video, and this is the second part of Awakening, Raising Consciousness is All That Matters. And I left off the first video at exactly that spot. Now, why is that? Well, I'm going to go back to 2012 for a minute when a open letter from David Suzuki appeared in news media and on his website, the David Suzuki Foundation. And essentially the letter said that the environmental movement had failed. And he was correct. He admitted in that open letter that every single project had only at best been staved off from occurring. They still all ended up happening. The environmental damage has been done. And he recognized that the reason for that was all that effort should have been focused on, instead on raising societal consciousness. In other words, conscious awakening. Now, I'm known to be a fairly straightforward guy. I'm known to be blunt. So I'm going to be blunt. It's really easy for us who claim to be spiritual, awakened people, and I got to be honest with you, there's not a lot of awakened people out there. It's really easy to claim that you're awakened. It's really easy to claim to be a spiritual person. But the only measure of any of those things is the amount of conscious awareness you exhibit in your day-to-day interactions with others and in your life. I saw a really disturbing post on one of the good, open-minded groups that we partake in. And in that disturbing post, the person was ranting and raving how they thought that this was a place where enlightened people were going to meet and that they were enlightened and expected this out of other people. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, this is called spiritual ego. Anyone who has truly raised their consciousness, and, at the end of the day, unless you have honestly had that Satori experience, where you've actually experienced the oneness through your entire being, where it is not a mind thing anymore, you're not at the point yet where you need to be. And that is not a judgment. That is just a fact of development. Those who claim awakening, then you should only have one purpose. And that purpose is realizing at a deep level that all of our purpose is to wake the species. We don't do this one-on-one. That's part of the illusion. The whole species has to come forward. And it will. This is preordained. The end is never in doubt. But again, as I said in the first video, we have an awesome responsibility and an opportunity to advance our entire species in a quantum conscious leap forward. That'd be the kitten. I'm going to see if I can pick her up. Come here, Karma. Ah, gotcha. So I'm going to introduce everyone to Karma. This is Karma. She's actually a really good little kitten. She was a rescue. She was a kitten in a barn with a bunch of other cats that were malnutritious. No, she wouldn't have been very good to eat. She was malnourished and in rough shape, and we took her in, and now she's just a wonderful cat, and she spends every night on bed with in our bed with us. So we're going to go back to this spiritual ego. Uh, it's very easy to get caught up in that. It's very easy to get distracted in the mind games the ego loves to play. Constantly switching from one practice to another is a prime example of that. You know, trying to identify yourself by by a role you choose to play, whether it's spiritual teacher or yoga teacher. You know, in my particular example alone, I do spiritual teaching. I do one-on-one life coaching and counseling. I teach Iyengar yoga, and I teach a home program that people can bring home and use so they don't have to show up all the time. But at no time do I claim to be any of those things. Why? Because I'm not. Those are all roles that I play. And those roles come and go. They've come and gone your entire life. They don't make up what you really are. Getting in touch with that is the only uh, reason why any of these practices are undertaken. You know, we can get so lost. You know, in the case of my wife, and I love her dearly. Don't get me wrong, but you know, I said to her yesterday, if you're going to sit and watch short spiritual talks that reinforce egoic issues you still feel you have instead of getting the deeper insight in it, you're spinning your wheels. You're not going to get anywhere. You need to open yourself, continually return to your breath, continually return to awareness. You know, there's a lot of people out there, especially in the Western world, who are touting such concepts as, well, you know, you can fit in a lifetime of meditation in 4 minutes and use this headband, use this technique, use that technique. And I need to be crystal clear about this, okay? In all of my travels through the East, the Orient, Africa, the Middle East, Russia, Northern Europe, never did I ever meet any more powerful practice that any people ever used outside of becoming mindful of the breath. That's the gift that we're born with. The breath is designed to return us. The breath speaks the truth of our existence. We are exhaled out by the Creator, and we are inhaled back in, and we are exhaled back out, and we are inhaled back in throughout eternity. Your breath is there to remind you of this. Your breath is there to bring you back to that. One or two conscious breaths performed many times during the day can be far more powerful than any amount of reading or other egoic activities that you engage in. Now, I'm not trying to be hard on people, and I'm certainly not coming down on people for your practice. But I am observing you. I'm watching the words, and I'm listening to the actions that are being written out. And in many cases, when you think you're coming from a higher place, you're not. You're actually just coming from a segregated ego. And as I talked about in the video on ego, this is exactly what ego does. As soon as it feels threatened in any way, it begins to form a new structure for itself because it does not care what structure it has. So you can go from Christian to seeker, spiritual seeker. And, you know, when it comes to all this seeking, we need to put an end to that too. There is not a living being on this planet that needs to go seeking anything. You just have to understand that you've always had it all along. Believe in yourself, trust in yourself enough to just go ahead and start living it. You know, one of the common phrases my wife will say was, well, I'm going to get there someday, honey. And I say to her, it's not about someday. It's about simply choosing in every moment of every day. Conscious awareness. Being aware seeing what your ego is wanting of you and what your ego expects is going to happen, and maintaining that observer status and just allowing yourself to watch what unfolds. This is the true exercise of spirituality. It's not to seek. There's nothing for you to seek. You are it. You are a powerful spiritual being manifesting a human experience, and in that human experience you have an ego, a filter, a particular way of looking at the universe that is a one of a kind. And this is what you need to start utilizing, to start focusing on, if we're ever going to move this species forwards. And it is a must. We really, there is no choice, okay? We're going to evolve. But there's always two ways. There's the painful way to evolve, and it's very painful to the ego, and it appears very painful on the outside, okay? And then there's the peaceful, less dramatic, sunshine and butterflies type of way, which I'm really rooting for, okay? The X factor. The idea that we as a species possess the technology and the manpower on this planet to link it together and raise the consciousness of the entire population in one glorious, sweeping wave of love and compassion and awakening awareness to the truth that we are all one. Our politics are reflective of the way we've been thinking, the way ego thinks, the way ego acts, the way ego talks. Trump is not the bad guy. Trump is a representation, as all politicians are, of the falseness of the system itself. You know, democracy, literally the power of the people. And yet we sit here powerless thinking we are free. As our so-called government leaders, a news article came up today, and Justin Trudeau, who is the prime minister, and honestly, the boy should go back to school. He's sitting in a town hall meeting, and he's looking people in the face, and he's saying, well, we don't have the money to pay what veterans want. But you have the money to drop bombs. You have the money to go buy new aircraft and new naval machines of war to do harm and to kill and to plunder other lands. And you hide under a cloak of conspiracy and secrecy. And we as a people, we're the complacent ones. We have let this happen. The rule of law is only designed for those who don't have an innate set of moral beliefs, a code that they follow by themselves. I mean, I look at a handicapped parking spot, and I see time and time again this handicapped parking spot where we go by quite often is always filled with someone who's not handicapped. And I think to myself, I would never do that. Because seeing that sign makes me immediately grateful that my handicaps are less obvious than a lot of people's, and that I don't need that parking spot. And I am considered disabled. I'm not even supposed to be able to walk. Yoga, a lot of meditation, a lot of grace. I do really well. Our science is also indicative of where we are as a species, okay? We have the ability to destroy ourselves and to destroy all life on this planet. We look at our technological abominations that we create to destroy and to kill and to waste away in the case of disease and virulent strains of anthrax and smallpox. And we fool ourselves in believing that someone else may be playing with them too, so we should as well. All of these things are almost like the Yellowstone caldera, okay? Over time, there's a buildup. There's a spiraling up of the energy, and neither one of these energies is bad. But in every other case in human history, we've taken a dive off that cliff. The dive this time is, quite frankly, going to cause a lot of suffering. And we're all responsible for it. Equally responsible. Just as responsible as the person that we stuck in an office and asked them to do the deed. Religion, I don't have a lot to say good about religion. I'm really sorry. I know lots of beautiful people who practice religious faith inside of religions. But I know of no good religions. You know, the Catholic Pope has access to the minds of 1.2 billion Catholics. Muslim clerics around the world have access to another billion to 1.5 billion Muslims. The other Christian faiths alone account for another couple of billion, and the various other small faiths included. All of our religious leaders, how dare you sit behind your gilded walls, surrounded by the spoils that you have taken from good-hearted, good-meaning people to serve those in need, and instead it serves you. You sit behind your desk and you've convinced yourself that the reason you need this building and your new car and your 401k or your pension plan or whatever else the case may be is because it'll allow you to continue doing what you're doing. Well, I have news for you. Christ owned nothing. Buddha walked away from everything. Gandhi owned a pair of glasses and a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and a piece of cloth to wrap himself in and some sandals. Church leaders, religious leaders, you could all come together. You could get this on national TV in every possible way, broadcasted across the world, that you have come to the understanding that all paths lead home to our Creator, to our Father, our Mother, the field of intelligence that we are all part of, life itself. Our spiritual leaders, Eckhart Tolle, our moral compass leaders, like Oprah Winfrey. The list goes on and on. Each one of these spiritual leaders could come together and say, no longer is it about our particular path, but it's about the fact that we're all on the path together. The first thing that happened to me when I had my first Satori experience, when I came out of it, and you have to come out of them, because no experience is worth having unless you experience the opposite of it. You would have no basis for comparison, okay? When I came out of that first Satori experience, the very first thought that crossed my mind was, this means nothing if the entire species isn't here too. I can't tell you how deeply this is entrenched in my heart. And I'm going to wrap it up at this point because it gets too emotional for me. The vibrations it starts in me, my higher being literally begins to expand past the shell of my body, and my body feels like it's going to fragment and bust apart on me. I love you all. We don't need to do this the hard way. And, you know, quite frankly, nothing else really matters. If there's no one to be right anymore, if there's no safe place for children to lay their heads anymore, if there's no surety of food and health anymore, what good are all our arguments about who's right and who's wrong? What good have been all our wars, all of the destruction, all of the pain, all the suffering? What good does any of it mean? If in our last breaths we're still arguing with each other about whether we're doing the right thing or not. This is Garhen for awakentheworld.ca. I truly wish you a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon. Take care. Namaste.